Hey YouTube, Kira Qualia here, bringing you all my Cardfight Vanguard Shojodoji deck profile for post-dimensional Transcendence. We got new support for the Shojodoji deck in the third Cardfight Vanguard booster set. New support including a new grade 3 form that makes use of the Energy Blast ability, along with the other stealth support cards that we received from the booster pack and some of the older support mixed in for the bind playstyle of the Shojodoji deck. So big thanks to my buddy Nick for letting me borrow his Shojodoji deck for the video. Very awesome and very strong for sure with all of the support we have for it. So let's go ahead and get started with the deck profile. So to start off for the ride deck, we have the Energy Generator with our grade 0 being Can't Quit Sake Stealth Rogue Shojodoji. When wrote upon, if you went second, draw a card. So the standard for the ride deck are grade 1 being Sakura Romance Stealth Rogue Shojodoji. When placed on Vanguard, look at the top 5 cards of your deck. Choose up to 2 normal units with stealth in their card name from among them. Reveal them, put one of the reveal cards in your soul, and bind the remaining cards and shuffle your deck. And then from this card with the bind zone, if you have a grade 1 or greater card with Vanguard with stealth in its card name, you can soul blast one and call this card to rear guard. So it's more set up initially for your bind zone and other cards in your soul, with our grade 2 being World Shaper Stealth Rogue Shojodoji. When placed on Vanguard, look at the top 5 cards of your deck, choose up to 2 normal units with stealth in their card names from among them, reveal them, put one of the reveal cards into your soul, call the remaining cards to rear guard, and shuffle your deck. So more setup as well, just being able to also call a card to rear guard and having the same option if you have a grade 2 or grade Vanguard with stealth to soul blast one when it's in the bind zone to call it to rear guard also, with our grade 3 Vanguard being our Cloudwater Flitfoot Stealth Rogue Shojodoji, along with the copy we run in the ride deck. We are also running 3 additional copies of this card in the main deck as well. With this card, it's also regarded as Peak Personage Stealth Rogue Shojodoji, so it can fit with all the other cards that need that specific name for the Vanguard. And on the Vanguard circle, once per turn, you can Energy Blast 3, bind 3 cards with stealth in their card name from soul, choose 2 of your opponent's rear guards, bind all cards on the chosen rear guard. Your opponent chooses a card from their hand, binds it, and at the end of the turn, your opponent puts them into the hand. So taking away some of the cards from their hand for them to use, very Nubatama-like for what this deck was meant to do with the original Nubatama abilities. And on the Vanguard circle, when this unit attacks or is attacked, put 2 rear guards into the soul, choose 2 cards with stealth in their card name from your bind zone, call them each to a front and back row rear guard, and if it's your opponent battle phase, call the chosen cards to the guard circle instead. So you either have an attack offensive capability call or a defensive guard capability call, depending on where you place those cards. So very, very useful, making use of the Energy Blast ability so you don't really waste Soul Blast or Counter Blast with this card, being able to save them for other cards we run in the deck. Other grade 3s that we run include the 4 copies of Stealth Dragon Unprecedented. When it's placed on rearguard by the card's ability, if you have a Vanguard with Tamayura or Shojodoji in its card name, Soul Blast 1, draw a card, and on rearguard, if 2 or more cards are put into your rearguard into your soul, this unit gets plus 10,000. Additional setup for this card, giving you a draw power off of the Soul Blast, depending on the setup you also use for your soul buildup of Shojodoji to have this card get additional power on the rearguard circles also. But the main play here, just being able to place it on rearguard by a card ability. So your Shojodoji being able to call out from the bind zone to rearguard. And then also the 2 copies of Stealth Dragon Dual Wielder. On rearguard, when this unit attacks, if you have a Vanguard with Shojodoji in its card name, Counter Blast 1, bind one of the rearguard, choose a face-up card from your opponent's bind zone, put it on the bottom of the deck. If you do not put a card, choose a unit card from your bind zone with Stealth in its card name with grade less than or equal to your Vanguard, and you may put into your hand. So just more ways to get cards that you have set up in your bind zone back into your hand for you to then use again. For the grade 2s, we're running 4 copies of Stealth Fiend Izazao. If you have a Vanguard with Shojodoji in its card name, Counter Blast 1, look at the top 5 cards of your deck, choose up to 1 normal unit with stealth in its card name from among them, reveal it, put it in your hand, and shuffle your deck. So just more search power in the form of a grade 2. And when this unit is put from the rear guard into soul during your turn, choose one of your opponent's face-up cards in the bind zone, put it on the bottom of the deck, and choose a Vanguard, and it gets plus 5,000 to end of turn. So also just being able to take away some of the cards you set up with your bind abilities of your opponents back onto the bottom of their deck, so then they lose being able to put it back into their hand after it's placed in the bind zone again also. For more of the grade 2s, we do run a good number of grade 2s just with all of the call and setup we want to do, and that's 4 copies of Stealth Dragon Tsukuyodachi. When this card is put into your soul from deck or rearguard during your turn, bind this card and soul charge 1, making up for the card you put into the soul by also giving you an additional card to be able to then set up in the bind zone. And from the bind zone, when 2 or more of your rearguards are put into the soul at the same time during your turn, you can counterblast 1 and call this card to an open rearguard. So just more set up from the bind zone, making up for the soul charge power, so you have soul to use with your other card abilities, and then this card also giving you that additional setup. Now for the next grade 2, ideally we do want to play 4. We have the 1 copy of Stealth Dragon Jakumetsu Arcs and the 1 Drag Raider Kasim as a placeholder for the 2 copies of Stealth Dragon Oigishi. With this card, when it's placed on rearguard, look at the top 5 cards of your deck, choose up to 1 card with Stealth and its card name from among them, put it into your soul, shuffle your deck. If your opponent's a Vanguard is a grade 3 or greater, it gets plus 5,000. So I would say just a weaker version to compare to our grade 3, but we also have the option when it's put on rearguard into soul during your battle phase, counterblast 1, choose 2 face-up cards in your opponent's bind zone and put them into the drop, and all of your front row units with Stealth in their card names get plus 5,000 power. So this is where this card definitely excels compared to the grade 3, being able just to completely get rid of those cards in the bind zone of our opponents just with the use of a counterblast to do so. So this card is definitely very, very scary when being able to do that, just for that initial power up and then the initial, additional power up while also being able to get rid of cards. For the grade 1s, we run 4 copies of Stealth Fiend Forktail. When it's placed on rearguard, you may look at the top 7 cards of your deck, choose up to 1 normal unit with Stealth in its card name from among them, put in your soul and shuffle your deck. So just more cards to set up into the soul using our grade 1, which also can provide a boost on the back row rearguard. Doesn't take any soul blasting or counter blasting to be able to use this card. It's just set up with the top cards of our deck. And also the 3 copies of Stealth Rogue Path of Chains Kagechiko. When placed on rearguard, choose a card with Stealth and its card name from your drop. You may put that card into the soul, and when your other unit's placed on rearguard from the bind zone, if you have a Vanguard with Shojodoji in its card name, put this unit into the soul and draw a card. So making way for some clear on the rearguard abilities for us to then use other cards that we may have set up as well, thanks to this card. And then the final numbers for the grade 1s, 2 copies of Stealth Dragon Raidon Kunai. When your other rearguard is placed on rearguard from the bind zone, bind this unit, and that unit gets plus 5 until end of turn. If you do not countercharge this turn, countercharge 1. So it makes up for a lot of the heavy counterblast that we do with this deck as well, being able to use it as a bind option to have something else get plus 5 and the countercharge. And from the bind zone, when your grade 3 Vanguard with Shojodoji and its card name is attacked, you may call this card to guard circle, and it gets plus 5 shield. So an additional 10k guard as an additional defense from the bind zone also. With the last of the grade 1s, he was running a preference count. We do have the Stealth Dragon Tsuroi, which I do think are very aesthetically pleasing for the deck to run. So if you want to go the full route, you can choose whichever Sentinel you want to go for, the Dragon Empire lineup for the deck, with the final triggers being a rainbow lineup. So 4 of the Stealth Dragon Maruwazu, the 4 copies of Stealth Dragon Midorigumo, since they do have stealth in their name, the same with Stealth Dragon Yamitaguri, 3 copies of the front trigger, and lastly the 4 heals being Stealth Dragon Shinkitan, with our over trigger being Drag Veda, the only trigger that doesn't have the stealth in its name, but still very, very useful for a restanding Vanguard option. But that is it for the deck profile. I hope you all enjoy. Once again, big thanks to my buddy Nick for letting me borrow the Shojodoji deck for the video. And as always, until next time, please don't forget to leave a like and subscribe, and Kira Qualia out.